Now let's discuss Operation Ethnic Fury. The U.S. is bombing Iranian warships in retaliation against their neighbors in the region.
Correspondent Trey Inks is live in Tel Aviv with the latest. Good morning, Trey.
Yes, Lawrence, good morning. It was another sleepless night in Tel Aviv, with attack and air raid sirens sounding 4 times, forcing people to take shelter and refugees. Many missiles were intercepted while Israelis and Americans weakened the Iranian regime and its ability to launch attacks against Israel and Gulf countries in the region. We have images of the aftermath inside Iran showing damage not only in Tehran but also in other areas. There is a joint effort by Americans and Israelis to weaken Iran's ability to respond, including ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones. Now, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, spoke today about the ongoing success of this operation.
We are in a campaign against an enemy that wants to destroy us. We destroyed their nuclear and ballistic capabilities in Operation Rising Lion. After that, instead of learning their lesson, they tried to rebuild them and bury them deep underground so that we couldn't hit them.
What? Israelis look to the east and the north? For the Lebanese Hezbollah, backed by Iran, there were new nighttime attacks targeting members of Hezbollah and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. According to the Israeli Defense Forces, the Golani Brigade left Gaza for the northern border, preparing offensives against Hezbollah. One of the main spokesmen for the Israeli army spoke about this operation.
In recent days, we have seen Hezbollah try to increase the attacks against the north and expand the fire to other areas of the country. Hezbollah is suffering heavy blows. We are deepening the damage to its capabilities daily and increasing the pressure on it.
We are monitoring developments in Lebanon and Iran. This week, there were pro-regime demonstrations. You can see people here chanting in support of Moshe Rahmani, the new supreme leader of Iran. What you don't see on the streets of Iran now are anti-regime protests due to fear of a new crackdown on civilians. We know that earlier this year, an estimated 32,000 people died in these protests.
Trey, what did Netanyahu mean when he told the Iranian people that soon there would be an opportunity for them to free themselves?
I'm preparing a report on this topic right now, but clearly there are things happening behind the scenes. This indicates that the Americans and the Israelis want to empower Iranian civilians who are against this brutal regime to take to the streets once again. We don't know when this will happen or if the conditions will remain so that they can take to the streets without being killed by the security forces, but this we do know. In Operation Epic Fury, many of those responsible for the repression were eliminated and the headquarters of the Revolutionary Guard in Tehran was destroyed. In addition, these heavy blows will continue against the Iranian regime and we can expect an increase in attacks throughout the day, today, and during the night.
Trey, you are bringing information that you started reporting about that brigade that was on the Gaza border coming from Israel. It's a ground force that's advancing.
Yes, that's right. Lawrence is a ground force. The Golani Brigade was the spearhead of the Israelis when they entered by land to fight Hamas inside Gaza. We saw several of these soldiers during the war as infantry fighters. They have the capability to advance further into Lebanon if the Israelis make that decision. Currently, there are tanks and troops in southern Lebanon. Over the weekend, Hezbollah killed 2 Israeli soldiers in the region, which is a difficult area to operate in. This explains the deployment of the Golani Brigade, a unit with extensive combat experience.
Trey, a bit of analysis along with reporting. Why the Gulf states? Look, today, Saudi Arabia intercepted missiles targeting the Prince Sultan Air Base. We saw the United Arab Emirates targeted again yesterday. At what point do they start defending themselves and striking back? Do you think the UAE and Israeli forces would like them to do that?
That's a great question, and I want to be careful with my reporting. I'm also working on a story about this here, but there are conversations happening behind the scenes about the possible involvement of the Gulf states. They understand that they're suffering a massive number of attacks with ballistic missiles and drones. Not just against EPO sign-on military targets in their countries, but also against the civilian population there. So that's certainly a consideration. I've also been talking to sources in the Gulf, and they say there is a red line. We're trying to understand what that red line is as these attacks happen. But the fact that we're seeing drone and missile attacks against cities like Doha, Abu Dhabi, and Dubai, these are areas where international tourists go. We know that there were thousands of American citizens at the start of this war who were just on vacation there. These are countries that are not used to suffering this kind of attack, very different from Israel. Therefore, these conversations are happening, and there are ongoing considerations about greater involvement, possibly not just defensive capabilities, but also offensive ones.
That would change the whole game.
And you know what I thought? We interviewed someone, it was that woman, she was American and got stuck in Dubai. And I immediately thought that these drone attacks are happening. Where many Americans can't get out, the Americans who wanted to leave, they've already managed to get out. Now,
tens of thousands of Americans managed to leave the Middle East thanks to the efforts of Milson Alves. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Assistant Secretary of State Dylan Johnson, and others have been working behind the scenes with charter flights, ground transportation, and coordination to get Americans out of dangerous situations at no cost. This effort has been very successful, and we have already seen Americans returning, for example, to Dulles Airport on the outskirts of Washington after leaving the Middle East. And so we understand that these efforts will continue, but so far tens of thousands of Americans have managed to return home since the start of this war.
Certo, então obrigado, Trey.
Trey.
Now, they are trying to impose an economic burden on the region. I mean, we will pay for it. The only way to lower the price of oil and gas is to start escorting the ships. I hope we start doing that immediately. The minute the escorts stop, you'll see the price per barrel drop. It has already gone down from 120 to 85.
It really did go down.
Meanwhile, let's now talk to Steve Harrigan, who is live at the border between Iran and Armenia. Steve.
The Central Command of the Inham Sinhos destroyed 16 Iranian mine-laying ships in the Strait of Hormuz. 1/5 of the world's oil passes through this narrow channel. President Trump warned that if mines were laid and not removed immediately, Iran would face unprecedented military consequences. Central Command reported that 50 Iranian vessels were destroyed, rendering its navy ineffective in combat. In addition, there were 140 American soldiers wounded. Of those injured, 8 remain in serious condition. And finally, a severe warning about possible internal dissent in Iran. The chief of police in Iran stated that protesters in the streets will be treated as enemies of the state and that the security forces have their fingers on the trigger. Guys, back to you.
Hi, so Steve, just quickly about the movement. It doesn't seem like many people are trying to leave Iran through that border area where you are, right? Just a trickle.
They're not. It's a quiet little town, 2 or 3 a day. We talked to them today, and that changes quickly. This is an easy and free way out. The border is open.
Yeah, thanks.
As Steve reported, the Tehrani Selch and our forces eliminated 16 Iranian mining ships, and I wondered what those ships were. And they refer to Iran deploying these naval mines using small vessels. In the Strait of Hormuz, to disrupt global oil transportation, mines are used to block the Strait of Hormuz. They are considered cheap but lethal underwater weapons designed to deny access, damage commercial tankers, and close the waterway. Donald Trump said he will destroy those mine-laying ships. 10 were inactive, which he had already destroyed before. But he says if they do that, we will strike back even harder.
Yes, but why did the Iranians think they could carry out any kind of combat operation on the water without us finding out? That seems absurd to me. Their navy doesn't stand a chance against ours, just like against the intelligence we have. But General Jack Keane was talking about the operation, and they've been successful so far. Watch.
The offensive operation is managing day by day to eliminate all of their offensive capability, ballistic missiles, and drones. And we're penetrating underground into subterranean locations to hit those missiles, destroy the launchers, destroy the transport vehicles that move them, and destroy the command and control center. This is a systematic and deliberate approach, and the same applies to drones. And the proof is right there. Objectively, their retaliatory capability percentage has dropped by well over 90%. That in itself is quite remarkable.
We destroyed 50 of their main ships, but 80% of the smaller boats are still active. And with 2,000 to 5,000 mines that have been reported, they need to monitor the situation. If they could get an escort for those barges out, then oil and gas prices would drop. And guess what? We only get 5% of our oil from China, but they get 50% of theirs from there. So the world would benefit from this. I wonder how long it will take until we decide to take possession of Karg Island, where 90% of Iranian oil is shipped from. We have that if you want the ultimate advantage. We have it right there. It's on the map. Yeah, I think the president has been talking about this since the 80s. Everyone knows it, and that would get their attention. So I think...
What exactly have you been hearing, Brian, regarding this hesitation about the island?
The hesitation would be that there might be a temporary increase in oil and gas prices, mainly because we're currently in transition, in control of that. With the Iranians being pushed out of there, there might be very little coming out of there, but Iran can't exist economically without it. To influence a regime that's terrified of exposing its leader as much as possible, this is the way. If you have control of the situation, do as you did with Kelsey Rodriguez. We took all their ships and said nothing goes in or out. We'll control their oil. We overthrew Maduro, and now we refine their oil.
And an important point, she asked the new leader, who mentioned it, he had his leg amputated. They said he was injured. With that first attack, he wasn't seen. He didn't leave the house at all, so he's still alive. Well, souls he hides.
There is news about this, but we haven't officially confirmed it yet. The Times reports today that sources say they saw him being amputated, but we haven't confirmed this ourselves.
Going back to your question, when you read Netanyahu's call for people to rise up, it says, get ready to rise up. Yes, that indicates, I believe, that Mossad operates very well in the field. Yes, eliminating leaders because no one has better intelligence. They have already shown this in the last 2 or 3 years about Iranian society, who is in command and who is going to die. So who knows better than Israel?
Quickly, Brian, that's a good point because it seems that not even this new supreme leader has that much power. Since his father planned for all these small brigades to have their own command, and I think that's what's happening. That's why some of the Gulf states are being targeted. There's no one person leading the operation at the moment. You have all these little guys managing their own divisions, that's right.
And there's an even more powerful guy. It's not the president, it's Ali Larijani. He's the guy who gave the order to start cracking down on those protesters, killing them in cold blood and piling up the bodies last month. He's still there, trying to provoke our president.